Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, episode 544, Imagination and Innovation. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters. Today, I will continue with the approach, independence, and control. Here, I look at factors of independence and control, and I tie these into the imaginary territories of thought. Then, it's on to imagination and innovation. Here, I look at the role of imagination in innovation and reasons why innovation might be important in the future. Today's show will feature background footage from Mountains to Sea Trail. I hiked the section going north from Walker Knob Overlook. On this hike, it was a long uphill journey up a mountainside, back and forth. Took about an hour to get up to the top of the ridge. As I ascended the mountain, it looked much the same as normal, maybe a few more down trees from Hurricane Helene that hit the area on September 27th, 2024. However, when I finally made it to the ridge and started hiking along the ridge, it was much different. Most of the trees, perhaps 75% or more, were down. It was opened up a lot more. It was drier. Lots of big root balls. To get to this trail, take the Blue Ridge Parkway heading north out of Asheville, North Carolina. Go past Craggy Gardens. About 5 miles or so past Craggy Gardens, there'll be an overlook on the left. It's more of a pull-off. There's not much to see except woods. Anyway, it's called Walker Knob Overlook. Well, if the sign's still there. Anyway, once you get there, you hike on Mountains to Sea Trail. It will be on the same side as the overlook. It goes, as I said, it goes up the mountainside and then along the ridge. So, now let's continue with the approach, independence and control. And they're using it to control you. Eventually you might be their slaves, or perhaps even worse, perhaps you'll be dead. Perhaps they want everybody dead, or a lot of people dead. Who knows what these West Side deceptive people who are trying to control society might ultimately want. But it seems it's what's going on is that we got deceptive people in control. And a perfect example of that is Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and all his cronies. But anyway, there's probably lots of other examples of this too, this same phenomenon around the world. Probably a lot of other governments are facing similar situations where things are becoming increasingly authoritarian, where people are losing their rights and people are losing the range of things they could do and enjoy, or at least readily. So, and all of this is going on with as people get poorer and poorer, which limits what they could do. And so it's really sad. And so we have to have that independent attitude and realize that perhaps we can be self sufficient or at least work with each other. Even though we might not always get along, we gotta cooperate for the survival of all and the good of all. Sure, we have to realize that. We can't just be dominated by people who want to control our lives, our money, by making us have less disposable income. Oh, that word disposable income. They probably think that means you're just throwing it in a garbage disposal or throwing your income in the trash. And so they want less money thrown in the trash, so they want less disposable income. That is, the wealthy want less disposable income for everyone else because they don't want people to have choices with what to do. No, they want people more restricted and more in their control for whatever they might want us to do. But remember, being independent is important. And wealthy, deceptive people who want to control society might also want us less healthy as well. And so that probably explains the prevalence of horrible food on the market today in countries like China and here in the United States. So, it is important to have that sense of independence and self-sufficiency and cooperation amongst your neighbors and friends, and even people who might not see things the way you do. At least you could work together, because we're probably going to have to. Because, as I said, we might become poorer in the future. Anyway, things might get more difficult. So we need to band together. And, as I say, do more East Side things. Share knowledge. Sure, cooperate. Help the most unfortunate amongst us. Make sure they have adequate care. And perhaps even adequate entertainment. We all need to enjoy life, even the most desperate amongst us, either physically or mentally or financially or whatever. We all deserve to have a good time. So I guess we all gotta help each other with that. We gotta reach out to each other and explain our needs. And perhaps we can help. Sure, especially with their family and friends. We gotta have family. And if we don't have family, if we don't have family could help us readily, we gotta create our own family by having good friends, by meeting new people, and by building bonds of trust and cooperation. It is important to cooperate with each other. Sure, as I said, helping each other, sharing, having empathy and compassion, and helping each other with critical knowledge and skills. We might not have much, and I guess that might be how it goes into the future as we approach. So here's how it might happen. Perhaps the West Side wins. They get all the money. They get all the power and influence and control. And we are their slaves. We have almost nothing. We're just barely holding on to existence. We're trying to help each other get by with compassion and empathy and love and generosity. We are the meek. But what happens to the meek? The meek inherit the earth. It's right out of the Bible. The meek is like the east side. The meek might be associated with the east side imaginary territories I described earlier. And so now they're inheriting the earth. Suddenly, there is excitement. Well, I guess since I came up with the idea of the imaginary territories and the east side and the west side, and I realized I was associated with the east side and all that good stuff, I could feel the excitement of the east side. And I guess that's where the excitement comes from. It's like echoing back through time. From that time when the meek do inherit the earth. And it's such a thrilling and exciting moment. I know it is. I am associated with it. Sure. And so suddenly, there might be some kind of parade or music, but there'll be a big announcement that this is what's going on, that the meek are inheriting the earth, and it's like an announcement from God. But all of a sudden it's kind of hard to describe. It just kind of hits you like a bolt of lightning, and you're just overwhelmed and overjoyed, and you just can't believe it. It's like suddenly you have all the power. The power has shifted from the ultra wealthy and deceptive to the most poorest and needy amongst us. Suddenly they are in control. But they can't do anything. They don't have the knowledge or power or ability. But suddenly that's provided. And that's the excitement. Is you're rescued. Agents from the imaginary territories come in. And I guess they become real. They're kind of like angels who turn into real people who help rescue us. And as I said, teach us what we need and provide us with what we need to lift us up. Well, perhaps they get all this from the wealth of the ultra wealthy, but somehow there is resources and people available. Suddenly, it all happens very suddenly, and it's like it just blows you away. And I guess that's the excitement of it, is all of a sudden you go from having nothing to everything available to help you and to lift you up and to build you up and encourage you, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by compassion and empathy and love, and you could just feel it, and everything's gonna be okay because everyone around you is from the east side too. Suddenly everyone's like me, and everybody suddenly knows the situation and knows what to do. It's almost told to us via telepathy, perhaps from the imaginary territories themselves, perhaps from God himself or herself. But God speaks through the imaginary territories, at least in theory. imaginary territories of thoughts, governed by our value system. So, whatever values and morals and judgment we have, well, that determines the imaginary territory we are associated with. So there's this mission of the East Side, and that's the other way you'll know it. You'll know it's real and not a fake version of the East Side. Because surely there can be fake versions, but how can you authenticate the East Side? It's relatively easy, you know. The person in charge, so to speak, of the East Side, they're like, I'm in charge of the East Side, and I'm, giving you all this wealth and compassion and love and help and assistance. All you have to do is follow me and do what I say from now on. If that happens, you have reached the fake East Side, and it's going to go back to the West Side. The real East Side person in control would, the real East Side person or persons, quote, in control of administering all the wealth and benefits, they would say something like this. They would say, it's the mission that's important, and that is taking care of the meek and the less fortunate, making sure they are provided for, making sure there's knowledge for everybody for free, and that everybody can lift each other up, and that no one gets so wealthy they control everybody, and there's no agendas in that regard. And they'll say something like, that's the mission, and if I, as the leader of the East Side, ever deviate from that mission, well, I'll be instantly removed, and if I don't surrender my authority, you take it from me, and you put in place someone who fulfills the mission of the East Side to help the poor of us, and lift us up the best, the poorest, and provide for the poor people the best. But all at the same time, the wealthy have their wealth, and they still, can make money and do all their things. They just don't have extreme wealth, but they have some wealth, and it's balanced out between the wealthy and the poor. So it's not like everybody has the same amount of money. Like in a communist society, there are wealthy and poor, but the poor are certainly adequately taken care of. And if they're not, a new leader is assigned who will. And the wealth and the poor people are like, or wealthy people, poor people are like tightly coordinating with each other, and there's like lots of mediation. This is the East Side, and they're taking care of the poor people, and they're making sure they're okay. And as I said, lots of mediation, and the true leaders of the real East Side will be like, well, don't worry, as soon as I slip up, as soon as I don't live up to the proper mission of the East Side, I will be replaced by someone who could do the job better. And if not, you could fire or remove me. And they'll emphasize that instead of saying, follow what I do forever. If some leader of the East Side says that, well, then it's the fake version of the East Side. The person in authority of the East Side should always be willing to give up their authority to be replaced by someone who could do the mission better. That's all I'm saying. That's how you know it's real, the real deal of the East Side imaginary territory. So hopefully you got some sense of the excitement of it all, of the imaginary territories in the East Side at least. And you have a sense of about independence and control. As we deal with the approach, independence and control. Now it is time for imagination and innovation. Here, I look at the role imagination plays in innovation and other factors of innovation, and why innovation might be more important in the future. So let's dive into it. Well, we need innovation. We need to be creative, inventful, and be able to fend for ourselves, to be able to function more independently of other people and infrastructure. This may become important in the future. Let's say if infrastructure is damaged for a long time, such as having no internet for months on end, or no electricity or water, things could get difficult. We need to get creative. Well, I guess we gotta break out our survival skills and our prep skills. Sure, we gotta be ready. We have to have plenty of food and water and other supplies in case things go bad. We like to think that help is on the way. And perhaps it is. Perhaps we'll get rescued by God or the imaginary territories. But we might not be rescued. Sure, help might be on the way. However, it might be delayed. It might be delayed a long time, perhaps beyond our lifetime. So we might never see the grand rescue we envision. Whether it might be the second coming of Jesus Christ, or being saved by the imaginary territories, or perhaps something else. I guess there's many rescue scenarios, and perhaps even several of them might play out. But once again, there's a good chance it's all delayed, and perhaps delayed beyond our lifetime. And even though things might get horrible, we just might have to deal with it. So, we better get creative, we better get innovative, and we better be prepared and ready and strong and able and willing and have energy to deal with the situation, which might be adverse. I guess I know about it myself, having experienced Hurricane Helene. No power for a week. We were running on a generator. But many of my neighbors didn't have generators, and so they really needed help. No food, no water. It could get bad. Fortunately, supplies were brought in via helicopter. And one of her neighbors had plenty of supplies that she saved up over the years. But whatever. The main thing is we have to be ready for any kind of disaster. As I said, loss of infrastructure, loss of electricity, water, internet. And of course that might mean, would mean no more e-commerce. And perhaps cash-only transactions. That is what happened for the first few days after Hurricane Helene. There was no power, no internet, and only cash accepted at the grocery stores. So perhaps save up that cash. Not in the bank, but somewhere stashed at home where you could get to it, or wherever you feel is an appropriate location. So we gotta have cash. we got to be ready. We got to have supplies. I guess I'm thinking disaster might be coming, but it really might be. So we have to be ready. We have to have innovation. Well, to have innovation, you need to be creative. Or you often do, sure. And to be creative, you need imagination. So, you got to use your imagination to think of new ways to solve a problem. Fortunately, with me, with my marginal autism, well, I guess I have a little bit of an advantage because I often hide in my head, kind of shut out the world and go into my imagination. So I'm used to that kind of thing. Well, I guess you need to get used to it too. Not being autistic, but using your imagination more. Sure. And part of that might be empathy. And autism might play a role here. However, it's a mixed bag. It could be good and bad. Sometimes, autistic people can empathize with a person or situation really well, truly understand the feelings, emotions behind the situations, and the proper way to solve it, perhaps, and even what caused it. Often there could be a good understanding, and it all starts from the proper empathy. However, it doesn't always work out, and it could backfire, and autistic people might have less empathy than normal people in certain situations. Other situations, they might have more. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag.
Casey Waters Show. Producer, Casey Waters. Graphic editing, Judson Laird. Please note our new email address, CaseyWaters2 at CaseyWaters.com.